Hey everyone, today we are going to do another study from the biological approach, which is by Holzel et al. On mindfulness and Brainscans. Now, as always, let's look at the main assumptions of the biological approach. Please remember that these can be asked in the exam, and maximum you need to know 2, which I have provided. So the first main assumption of biological approach is behavior, cognitions, and emotions can be explained in terms of the working of the brain and the effects of hormones, genetics, and evolution. Second one is similarities and differences between people can be understood in terms of biological factors and their interactions with the other factors. And now we need to know the content of the study. We're going to first look at the psychology being investigated, then the background, then the aim, then the research methodology, the procedure, results, evaluation, and ethical issues. And I've actually added 2 more things, which are issues and debates and application to everyday life or real world, which is helpful in the exam because some questions are asked sometimes relate to those things. So before we actually jump into the study, let's understand some key terms. What is an MRI scan? Its long form is magnetic resonance imaging, and it is a brain scanning technique that creates detailed images of the brain structure. It uses strong magnetic and radio waves instead of X-rays. So it's basically not an X-ray, it's something else. And it's safer than an X-ray. An MRI helps scientists see different brain areas and measures their size and shape. It is commonly used to study brain damage, mental health conditions, and even localization of function, which we will learn about later on. Second key concept to know is what is gray matter concentration. Gray matter concentration is the part of the brain that processes information. It contains nerve cells, also known as neurons, which are responsible for 3 types of things: thinking, emotion, and memory. Gray matter concentration refers to how much gray matter there is in a specific brain region. The more the gray matter in an area, it means the more stronger connections and better functioning is in that part of the brain. So the more gray matter in a certain brain region is actually good because it helps in more better functioning. Now scientists, they use MRI scans and a special technique called voxel-based morphometry, VBM, to measure changes in the gray matter to see is the gray matter increasing or decreasing. So these are the key concepts, and now let's jump onto the psychology being investigated. There are 2 psychological concepts for this study. First is what is mindfulness, and second is what is localization of function. Let's look at mindfulness. Mindfulness is a technique that helps people feel calmer and more focused. It's like meditation, and you obviously know what meditation is. It's all about paying attention to the present moment without judging anything. You don't have to think about your past, and you don't have to worry about your future. Just observing your thoughts, feelings, and surroundings in the present moment. People use mindfulness to reduce their stress, improve their mental health, and become more self-aware. Localization of function, it means that specific brain structures are responsible for specific behaviors. Specific brain regions, different parts of your brain, are responsible for different type of behaviors. For example, your hippocampus helps with memory, and your insula, it is linked to emotions and self-awareness. Similarly, there are a million other brain regions linked to a million other things. There are some brain regions such as Broca's area, which is linked to your language. So that is what localization of function is about. Now, let's move on to the background of the study. Scientists have always been curious about how meditation affects the brain. In earlier studies in the past, what happened was that two groups of people were being compared. A group of people who meditated and a group of people who did not meditate. And well, the people who meditated, you could see that they had a lot more gray matter than the ones who did not. But there was a problem in this. This was a cross-sectional study, and the problem was that you didn't really track the change over time. What if the group who meditated, who had more gray matter, what if they were born with more gray matter? And it's not actually because of meditation, because we're not really tracking any change in the gray matter. So to fix this problem, Holzel, they conducted a longitudinal study which tracked the change over time to see, does gray matter actually increase as someone meditates? So that is the background of the study. The study had two aims. So there was a mindfulness-based stress reduction program, the MBSR program. And the first aim of the study was to see if practicing this program for 8 weeks would lead to any change in the brain. The second aim of the study was to see which brain structure would change as a result of this 8-week program. So the first was to see, is it leading to any change? And the second was to see which brain structure is it leading a change in. Now let's look at what type of experiment the study was, what type of designs were used, any correlations, IV, DV, and any type of data collection techniques. The study was done over a span of 8 weeks. What does that make the study? It makes it a longitudinal experiment. It was done over a long period of time, making it a longitudinal experiment. And it was helpful as it helped track changes over that specific period of time. The experiment was mixed design, meaning it used two different types of measure designs. The first one was independent measures design, the second was repeated measures design. Now let's look at how was it a independent measures design. It was an independent measures design because two groups were made, experimental group and a control group. The experimental group were the MBSR group, the one that took the program, and the control group were the group that did not take the MBSR program. And these two groups were compared. How is the study a repeated measures design? The study is a repeated measures design because something was repeated, and that was brain scans and also questionnaires. These were taken before the study and after the study, at the beginning and the end of an 8-week period, making it a repeated measures design. Correlations were also looked at. The researchers analyzed the correlations between the amount of time that the participants meditated for and if it had any link to increase in gray matter. So did meditating for a long time lead to a more increase in gray matter? Well, that was to be seen, that if there was any correlation in it. Now let's see at the IV and the DV. The IV consists of experimental group again. These were the people that took the MBSR program for 8 weeks. This MBSR program was a 2.5-hour session that happened weekly. And there was also one full day in week 6. This MBSR program had exercises that included body scan, mindful yoga, and sitting meditation. The subjects or participants, they were taught how to practice mindfulness and to integrate it into their daily lives. And for this, they were given a 45-minute instructional video that they could even use at home to do it. And they were even given homework to do at home. So they did mindfulness even at home and even when they came to do the program. Then there was a control group. This is also known as the waitlist group because they actually had to wait for 8 weeks before taking the MBSR program, meaning they were not given any mindfulness for a whole 8 weeks. Now, the dependent variable of the study is the changes in gray matters that were assessed using the MRI scans. The changes in gray matter before and after the 8-week MBSR program. There were two types of data collection techniques. Again, MRI scans. These were taken before and after, pre and post, and these kept a track of the changes in the brain, of gray matter concentration and other brain structures. Then the second type of data collection technique was self-report. In this, they used a 5-facet of mindfulness questionnaires, FFMQ, and it was used to measure 5 key aspects of mindfulness. We are going to dive into the detail about this questionnaire later in the procedure. First, let's look at the sample of the study. How many participants were there? There were 33 participants in total. 16 were in the experimental group, 17 were in the control group. So basically one more person in the control group. In the experimental group, there were 6 males and 10 females. Their average age was 38 years. In the control group, there were 11 males and 6 females. Their average age was 39 years. The demographics of these participants were that all of them were right-handed. None of them were left-handed. All of them were right-handed. They were healthy adults. They were from age ranging 25 to 55, no regular meditation, and they had very, very limited meditation experience. The sampling technique that was used to recruit these participants was volunteer sampling. These participants volunteered that they wanted to be part of the study. They were recruited from 4 MBSR courses held at a mindfulness center in the University of Massachusetts. They were referred by doctors for stress reduction or through personal choice. So basically, all of the participants were suffering from a stress problem. Now let's move on to the procedure. You have to keep in mind that there were 2 things done, pre and pro, meaning something that was done before the study started and something after the study was done, and that was the questionnaire and the brain scans. The experimental and control groups both completed the 5-facet mindfulness questionnaire, FFMQ, before and after the experiment. Now, what is the FFMQ? It's a questionnaire. It has 39 items and it measures 5 things. It's basically in the name. It measures 5 things. It measures observing, describing, acting with awareness, non-judgmenting of inner experience, and non-reactivity to inner experience. Now, each item of this questionnaire was responded on a 5-point Likert type scale. That's all that you need to know about the questionnaire, nothing more. Now, both of the experimental group and the control group also had what they had taken, their MRI scans, before the experiment started and also after the experiment. So, the brain scans were taken on 2 occasions. For the experimental group, these were during the 2 weeks before the experiment and then the 2 weeks after the 8-week MBSR program. There is an average gap of approximately 56 days. The participants in the control group had an average gap of approximately 66 days between their 2 scans. During the 8-week, participants in the experimental group were given 45-minute audio recordings of guided mindfulness exercises, and they were even given it as homework to do in their homes and integrate it in their daily life, in whatever activities they did normally in their life. And the mindfulness exercises, again, they included 3 things: body scan, yoga, and meditation. And this was to help them complete the exercises at home. That is all you need to know about the procedure of the study. That scans and a questionnaire was taken before and after the experiment, and that the experimental group were supposed to do certain type of exercises and they were given homework to do, and the control group basically did nothing. They were on a wait list. Now, what were the results of the study? What were the results after 8 weeks of an MBSR program for the experimental group and the control group? Well, the average time spent on mindfulness exercise by the experimental group was 27 minutes per day, and a total of 22.6 hours over 8 weeks. The experimental group they showed significant improvements in 3 of the 5 facets of mindfulness. And these 3 facets were acting with awareness, observing, and non-judging. There were also significant increases for the experimental group for the gray matter concentration in a few brain regions, not just one, but a few. And these brain regions are the left hippocampus, posterior cingulate cortex, and I don't know how to pronounce that one, but you can read it off and learn its name. And lastly, the cerebellum. So these were 4 brain regions that had a change in their gray matter concentration by the help of mindfulness program of 8 weeks. These 4 regions had an increase in gray matter concentration. That's all you need to know about the results. The control group, they did not show any significant improvement. Now, that is all to the study. Those were the results. It basically concludes that an 8-week MBSR program had led to an increased gray matter concentration in 4 parts of the brain, and therefore it shows that mindfulness is actually a good thing because it leads to increased gray matter, and people should actually do it because it is beneficial. So let's look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the study, and then we will go to applications after this. So what were the strengths of the study? The strengths of the study, quite obvious. We are using a scientific method, which is an MRI scanner. It is no human type of technique, it's actually a machine. And therefore, the strength is of objectivity and quantitative data. The use of MRI scanner helped measure dependent variable, which is a strength. It provided the researchers with quantitative data, helping them carry out statistical analysis. Whenever you are answering a question about evaluation, you're talking about strengths, about quantitative data. For quantitative data, you will say that it helps in statistical analysis. If you're going to talk about qualitative data, you're going to say it helps in thematic analysis. That's the difference. For quantitative, it helped carry out statistical analysis, such as comparisons between pre- and post-test levels of gray matter concentration between the MBSR and the control group. The second strength of the study was reliability. A questionnaire was used, the FFMQ, which is a highly reliable study. The reason that it is reliable is because it has a correlation, a high and good correlation between the 8 questions on acting with awareness, which is plus 0.87, making it a highly reliable questionnaire, and therefore making the study reliable. Second strength of reliability is the longitudinal study, which helped in allowing time for intervention to have an effect. So this is actually a strength because previous studies that were done, they did not really track changes over time, but this longitudinal study actually allowed time for intervention to have effect, actually allowed time for a change to occur, and therefore a measurable way for the researchers, therefore a strength. Now we're going to look at the weaknesses. I've given 3 weaknesses: lack of reliability, lack of validity, and lack of generalizability. How did this study lack reliability? It lacked reliability because it lacked standardization. The procedure was not standardized. It was not the same for every single participant. And how was that? It was because the participants, they had the freedom to choose what mindful exercise they wanted to do. So not all the participants did the exact same exercises. Some of them might have done Brainscans, some of them might have done the yoga part, and therefore all of them just did different ones, which makes it hard to replicate the study to see if it would result in the same results that they found out in 2011. If we do this study today, we can't really replicate it as it was in 2011 because participants, they did different type of exercises, and not all of them did the exact same thing, which is why it lacks reliability. Secondly, it lacks validity because the questionnaire that was used, it is a self-report, and therefore the participants might not have really answered the questionnaire with deep consideration, reducing the validity of the study, because if they did not really answer it properly, it affects the results of the study, and it affects the validity in turn. The study also lacks generalizability because the sample was really, really small. It was only 33 participants, and all these 33 participants were somewhat similar. They were all right-handed, they were from age 25 to 55, and they had similar educational backgrounds. Therefore, the study cannot be generalized to the public based on these 33 people. The study cannot be generalized to older people. It cannot be generalized to left-handed people, and also to those with different educational levels. Now we are going to look at the ethical issues. Most of the ethics were maintained except for one, which we will look into. First, let's look at how the ethics were maintained. The subjects or participants, they gave their written informed consent, so they consented to the study. Secondly, all the participants were protected from any type of harm. How was that done? It was done by clearing them for the MRI scans. It was made sure that none of them had any metal in their bodies that would be of potential harm when they were put into the MRI scan. And then secondly, they were looked for claustrophobia. Did any of them have claustrophobia? Because if you put a claustrophobic person in an MRI scan, they are going to have a panic attack or an anxiety attack, which will literally lead them to a lot of harm. So by clearing the participants for metal in their bodies and no claustrophobia, they were protected from harm. Therefore, ethics were maintained. Thirdly, fair treatment for the control group. Yes, the control group was on a wait list for a whole 8 weeks, but they were given their fair treatment after the experiment was done. They were ensured that they received their MBSR program. And lastly, they had the right to withdraw. If they found the study or experiment uncomfortable, if they did not want to go in the MRI scanner and wanted to withdraw, they had the right to do so. Therefore, ethics were maintained in this case. Now, how were the ethics not maintained? Even though fair treatment was provided, the control group did receive their MBSR program in the end, they were still on a wait list for 8 whole weeks, which means that there was a delay in help. They were still stress patients. They were still experiencing stress, and they experienced that stress for a whole 8 weeks, which basically harmed the patients. And the study did not protect them from harm for those whole 8 weeks. And therefore, ethics is broken in this sense and not maintained in this sense. And this could also be a potential weakness for the study. Now the study is completely completed. We have covered up all the points and content of this study, and this whole video that I just explained, this is all that you need to know about the study, and it is all that could be asked on the exam. Next, 2 things that I'm going to be talking about very briefly is issues and debates and application to everyday life, which is very, very simple. So issues and debates, the one that I chose is nature versus nurture. How is the study nature side of the debate, and how is it nurture side of the debate? Nature side, it supports nature in the way that the study focuses on brain functions, your biological brain, which is controlled by genetics, which makes it a nature side of debate. And how is it nurture side? How does it support the nurture side of the debate? Well, experiences like mindfulness practice, an outward experience or practice, can physically change your brain, which is nurture side of the debate. Now, applications to everyday life, the last thing that we have to do. How is mindfulness applicable to everyday life? Mindfulness could be integrated in schools and workplaces, and not just that. It could also be integrated into your daily life to help you regulate stress levels. Now, stress is something that is rising in today's world. Everyone is stressed about something, and regular MBSR can help maintain your stress, regulate your stress, make you feel better. You don't really have to do it in a lengthy way. You can do it in small, and a regular effort is enough to make a measurable brain change and bring improvement into your well-being. Schools and workplaces can integrate MBSR into their systems. For schools, like physical education, schools could include mindfulness sessions to support their students. Students have stress from their exams and studies, so This would really help the students' mental health and build lifelong habits. For workplaces, employees are stressed about a million things, their deadlines, their projects, everything. So the employers could invest in MBSR programs and help the employees boost their productivity and reduce stress-related sick days. And that is how it is applicated to everyday life. You can include more examples, not just from school and workplaces, but even from a person's life at home. So that is all to the video. It covers all the content related to the study, and that could be asked in the exam. For people that ask notes for this video, the notes are actually in this video. All you have to do is you can take screenshots or you could just note it in your notebook. And this is literally all that you need to know about the Holzel et al. Study and all that can be asked. So thank you for watching this video, and please like and subscribe. And if you want me to make a video on another topic, please tell me in the comments so I can start working towards it.